Schools in Nigeria are reopening this morning after the Yuletide holidays, despite the ravaging second wave of COVID-19. We'll now take a live cross to Abuja to join Arise correspondent Chinemerem Joseph, who has been monitoring schools in Abuja. Chinemerem, good morning. Thank you for joining us. What's the situation in Abuja with regard to the reopening of schools?
Well, good morning, Ruben, Rufai, and Abi. I'm somewhere around Gariki district in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, and just behind me I have the government secondary school right behind me, and there's also an LEA Festival Road Primary School. Now, we've been to a few of the schools here in the city center, but it appears that they're a bit skeptical allowing cameras into the school. Of course, it appears normal that there might be a little hitches here and there while trying to ensure that students carry out the protocols that have been laid down by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 to ensure that the spread of the virus is being managed. But I had a chat with the principal of this particular government secondary school in Gariki Area 10, where he told me that, well, school has resumed in earnest, but students are just trickling in, that it appears that a number of them are still very skeptical or unwilling to resume, or probably it's because it's the first week of resumption that we have the turnout still very low. The assembly, as he told me, has not been held for today, but what the students are doing is to try to clean up their environment. You know, there's a pile of dirt out here, as we can see some of them coming out. So they go into the school premises and then clean up what they could clean up and come trash the dirt out here. He says for now, studies won't really start, as they are trying to ensure that kickoff is done smoothly, and that they're also trying to ensure that the students really understand what it means to, do the protocols that have been set down by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, and also ensure that they understand what this virus really means and how to curtail and reduce the spread.
Well, in this particular school, what have you observed in terms of observance of protocols and adherence to the guidelines? Because from what we can see on the screen, some of the students are using face masks, but some of them are not wearing face masks.
Okay, so when I came into the school, I actually observed that the students, before you gain entrance into the school, you must be wearing your face mask, and then they also have the sanitizers used to clean their hands, and also the thermometer to check their temperature before gaining access into the schools. But the question is, if you ensure that the students are all covered up before they gain entrance into the school, how much really do you ensure and enforce that they keep wearing their face mask? It appears that I had a chat with a few of them, and they told me sometimes they get quite uncomfortable. How long do you stay covering up everywhere without breathing properly, and some even complain about having some mouth odor when you don't open up for a while to get some fresh air. So I observed that a number of them, have their face masks on, but how well really do you ensure that they keep wearing them? In fact, some of the students had to stop by at the gate because there are some sellers of the face masks to buy, to tell you that the students know that they are supposed to wear their face masks and also keep their hands clean from time to time. I also observed some points for washing hands inside the school, with the hand wash, that's the soap, so that they can use to wash their hands from time to time. Ruben.
Well, thank you very much, Chinemerem. We'll keep in touch with you and get more updates as the program continues. Thank you very much.
All right, real quickly, we'll move on to Business Update now. Michael Wilson-Joseph from London. Michael, it's a pleasure having you. Good morning.
So we'll start off with China. That was the big one. GDP figures rising by a lot more than people thought it would, up by 6.5% in the fourth quarter. But always look at these figures with a bit of skepticism. And the big one here is the fact that Chinese consumers remain relatively reluctant to spend. And that actually is casting a bit of a pall across these better than expected figures. So not all as well as you might have expected. Thus, Asia markets fairly soft as a result of that, and a weak Wall Street ending really on Friday, and the Huawei semiconductor ban. Now, one of the last kind of things that President Trump is doing in this crazy period right now is trying to stop companies actually getting in touch with the Huawei and selling its semiconductors. Wall Street also took fright actually over poor retail sales data on Friday too. So overall, then markets, a bit of reality sinking in. Quite honestly, the early week exuberance of the first week of 2021, investors are now actually looking at whether or not the vaccines are going to be delivered and so on. Also, there was a lot of shock and awe, wasn't there, on Friday about the Democrat fiscal plan, but it's being pared back. They're looking at the detail of it, 1.9 trillion still, but also delayed recovery concerns as well. So all these kind of things mixing in, particularly as far as the UK and Europe's concerned. Over the weekend, reports from Germany suggesting a curfew France has got its own harder lockdown as well. The UK tightened its own travel corridor lockdown rules, closing all travel corridors into the country. Those are those which you don't actually need to go into lockdown straight afterwards. And there are very, very strict testing and quarantine rules. Some people clearly are saying, so what? We should have done this months ago. Now, as your correspondent from Washington was saying, Joe Biden plans a big economic reset. What he's doing is he's actually reversing a lot of the things that Trump has done. But again, Trump actually, as I said, trying to impose more problems on Huawei over the weekend. Many will be actually saying, this is mystifying. Why do we have this 2-month handover period? It seems absolutely crazy. One ex-president says one thing, the incoming president says something else. Clearly, Trump is kind of thrashing around in the last days of his presidency. You have to say, why bother? Why making it so difficult? Is he trying to emerge from the background later on? Well, we'll see about that. So Friday started off the all-important US earnings season. The banks had very, very mixed results, quite honestly. But what a lot of them were clearly doing was actually putting a lot of money aside to take care of businesses that can't actually pay their debts. So that's the overall kind of view. As far as the UK and the EU is concerned, our Chancellor here, Finance Minister, was completely unequivocal, saying that the UK economy rather, will get worse, much worse before it gets better. Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England, trying to talk a bit about negative rates. They're pushing that idea further back, but still there are worries about this. The ECB, its President, Madame Lagarde, spent a lot of time prevaricating over whether or not they would put money into a fiscal plan for Europe. We had terrible retail sales here on Friday. Commodities, oil prices have corrected lower, and gold just choppy rage trading, really. No one really knows which way it's going to go. Week ahead, lots of little bits of information, but of course, the big one, the inauguration of Joe Biden. And as I say, has to be said, many people are just thinking to themselves, why are we bothering with this long overlap period? Is that something that will change come the elections in 2024? Perfectly possible.
I mean, there are many questions as regards that, and as regards the overlap, but 3 things I just want to cite. The assault on the Chinese company, how is this going to boomerang? Because obviously it will look as though that when Joe Biden comes in, he has to come and fight another commercial war with China, just like Trump fought with tariffs and the likes. That is going on at the same time. Secondly, I want to talk about furlough schemes in the UK, because it's important to talk about these things. UK, as far as I'm concerned, with those figures coming out, is looking like it's in a double-dip recession, if not in a double-dip recession happening. And at the same time, increased government spending, you have to raise taxes. I mean, I don't see the recovery. Because, the shocking thing for me, it is this same Conservative Party that came in and was mocking Alistair Darling, then, of the Labour Party that was Chancellor of the Exchequer, saying there was no money left. The Labour spent everything. So what is happening in the UK? I don't get it.
Okay, double dip recession, yes, very likely. What nobody knows and nobody can actually decide is whether once consumers are back from this lockdown, which may be now until Easter, will they start to spend again? If they do, yes, there will not be a recession. Technically, there will be a double dip recession. But in reality, what will happen? Will people go out spending? Yes, they may well do. Did you know that, for example, in a recession, more millionaires are traditionally created than there are out of recession when things are absolutely normal? Why is that? Because invention is the mother of, or necessity is the mother of all invention, isn't it? People actually start to think about their businesses very, very differently. I'm just putting the opposite view from you. I agree with you. Things are going to be very, very difficult indeed. We're being softened up for big tax increases and so on. Can the UK economy stand it? That's the absolute bottom line. Well, it can if business starts to recreate itself and entrepreneurs, just as in your country, are let loose, and entrepreneurs start businesses, some go bust, some don't, start to pay taxes, and we're off again. It's going to be very, very difficult. I think that reality will push us getting back not to pre-pandemic levels much before now, end of 2022, maybe beginning of 2023. So we got two very, very difficult years. But the fact of it is that the new monetary policy, as people around the world are finding, I don't espouse this one way, but they are actually saying that government debt is now so cheap that you might as well continue doing it. That's the reality of things. But let's not get caught into forecasts that are made looking at the rear view mirror. Society is changing. I think business is changing too. I'm taking a glass half full attitude towards this because I think it's appropriate to do it. It's pointless getting caught up in the gloom. We can do until the cows come home, basically. I think that what will happen is that business will reinvent itself.
Well, very quickly, I mean, the markets are beginning to look beyond Trump. They're now looking towards the Biden presidency. What are the strong signs that we should watch out for on Wall Street and also Main Street? And quickly, spot price of crude went down by about 1%, WTI, Brent crude across. And meanwhile, shale producers are expanding their share of the market. For how much longer will demand hold out within the oil market?
The oil market's very difficult to predict. I don't think we're past peak oil yet. I know that we're going to get electric cars, and the search is on, the likes of Tesla and so on, producing batteries, which will eventually replace the need for fossil fuels. But many, many economies, particularly in the developing world, are still dependent upon oil. So I think it's got a long way to go. Is there oversupply at the moment? Yes, there probably is. Do we know what the true position is? No, we don't. Do we ever know what the true position about how much oil there is around? No, we don't. Will OPEC continue, or will OPEC Plus take its place? Very possibly. I don't see the point of OPEC anymore, quite honestly. I think that countries will go their own way. As far as Biden and the markets are concerned, yes, of course, the markets look ahead. That's what they're supposed to do. They've been looking at Biden and they've been thinking, well, there might be more tax increases. Yes, there might be before infrastructure spending. Yes, there probably will be. If that means more people going back to work, that's probably quite a good thing. I think that the tech companies now, that really, I think, is where the markets are going to hinge. If the tech companies are not broken up, I suspect there will be, but I think it'll take a long time. Then if they're not broken up, I think the markets will continue to rise very, very gradually, and we'll be looking back at this and saying, what were we worried about? Yes, of course the markets will go. That's what asset prices do.
From Abuja now back to Lagos, where schools are reopening this morning after the Yuletide holidays, despite the ravaging second wave of Covid-19. Let's now take a live cross to our Rise senior correspondent, Tokunbo Oyetunji, who is monitoring schools in Lagos. Tokunbo Oyetunji, good morning. What's the situation in the city of Lagos?
Good morning, Dr. Abati. The streets are busy again with school buses, school cars, parents dropping their children and wards off their school for the resumption, like you rightly mentioned in the intro. We are at one of the private schools around here in Shangisha, actually CMD Road. It's called the Caleb International School, one of the biggest private schools around. We've been here for the past 1 hour and a half to actually observe the situation. Kids have been coming in, parents are coming in to drop their children off the school. We are right in front of the senior and junior secondary school section of the school. A few meters away from where we are, we have just on the main road the nursery and primary section of the school is situated there. So what we are saying is that, of course, the management of this place are put in place measures to actually comply with the directives set by the federal and the state authorities to contain the spread of COVID-19. Before you come into this place, you see a man standing right in front of the gate. Just so we have men standing at the other end of other entrance of into the school with their infrared thermometers, taking the temperature of the pupils and students that are coming, even parents that are bringing in their watch to this place. Even before we could access the facility ourselves, our temperature was taken. And just there behind him, you have the hand washing point with a hand sanitizer and soap and running water to actually ensure that your hands are properly sanitized before you come in. Of course, it's about a few minutes before 9 now, so it means that children have settled in their class. We'll have been able to show you live pictures of the pupils coming in with a nose mask, fastened around their faces. Dr. Abati, that's the situation here at one of the private schools that we have visited.
So, Kumbo, very quickly, as we can see, that school is actually taking some good precautions there. But have you been able to get a sense of the mood and understanding from the school kids themselves as to why they are taking these precautions as opposed to just being told to do it?
Oh, well, we have not been allowed, we've not been permitted to actually speak with some of the pupils. But you could see that the awareness, like it has grown among the adults, is equally grown among the school children and the pupils are actually on the road. So I need to move away for some of the vehicles moving to be able to pass. If you look just by the wall, right by my right here, you will see a kind of banner that is actually creating some kind of awareness, on the existence of COVID-19 for everybody. And if you watch the report that we did some 2 days back before the preparatory to this resumption, when we were interacting with some of those school proprietors, they actually said, as they are resuming today, just like they did last September, part of the major things that they are going to be concentrating on will be, spreading more of the awareness, not just among the members of staff who are already aware, but among the pupils and students themselves, especially, of course, the grown up among them, for them to be able to be aware of the fact that they need to be safe. Personally, to take some personal safety precautions to be able to actually stay safe from the pandemic. As you see some of the kids coming in, some of them that don't have their nose mask fastened across their face as they're in the cars, they're coming down, immediately you see them bringing out the nose mask, fastening it across their face. So it tells you that they're actually aware. If you're still able to get the microphone across to some of the pupils to actually find out how aware they are, we'll still do that. But for now, what we observe is that the awareness is growing among them.
All right. I'd like to say a very big thank you so much for your time, Dr. Kumar.